Hello, everyone. My name is Gio from the Fandom United podcast. Thank you so much for joining me. And I have a special guest here with me today, Mr. Sean O'Connell, author of the upcoming book, Release the Snyder Cut, the crazy true story behind the fight that saved Zack Snyder's Justice League. Sean, how are you, sir?
I'm wonderful, man. Thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Hey, I appreciate you being here. I just got to say, you are my first interview ever. So
Oh,
thank you
wow.
for that. Thank you for
I'll go
making
easy
time
on
for
you.
me, guys. Yeah, that's really awesome. So, Sean, before we get into everything, including the book, can you tell everyone a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I'm a full-time film journalist, entertainment journalist. I'm the managing editor of a website called Cinema Blend. I've been with them for almost 8 years, but I've been reporting on film and the entertainment world for more than 20 years at this point now. So
Yeah.
I feel like I've been in it for a really long time. This is my first book. I never really thought I would have um, a topic that warranted a full-on book. So many things that you write for the web are short, concise. Like you learn to get to the point quick because people who are reading stuff online or on their mobile devices, they don't stay on things for longer.
Right.
But when I landed on the story of what happened to Zack Snyder on his Justice League movie and the construction of the DCEU and its parallels to what it was trying to do alongside the MCU at the time, and the golden age of comic book movies that I think we're currently in right now, and then everything with the Snyder Cut movement, I was like, oh, okay, there's a lot here, and I'm going to try to put it into a book form. So that's where we're at.
All right. Well, we'll definitely get to the book. First, I got to ask this as somebody who appreciates the work of film journalism, and I've been following it since 2012. How important has the job of like a managing director for a film website become in just the past decade with this boom of online film blogging and information, whether it's true or false, spreading at a fast rate? And it seems like it's only getting faster.
Oh yeah, and that's not just film journalism. I think that's journalism in general,
Right.
of figuring out where you can trust to get your news from. And I mean, I think the role of a managing editor is extremely important in that we're the last line of defense of what types of stuff hits our site.
Hmm.
And so, we have to be the quality control filter that makes sure whatever we're putting up has merit to it, and that we can back it up. We live in a world of speculation journalism right now, and that stuff sort of bled over from chat rooms and Reddit threads. Of some of it's leaked and some of it's legit, leaked material that's coming from places on high, and some of it is friend of a friend of a friend of a friend who told me something that may or may not be true, and I'm not comfortable reporting stuff like that because I want it to be verified.
Right.
And so one of the other things too, that like I've been in this business almost 20 years, but I haven't had the contacts at the studios that you need to operate in this world outside of the past 10 years, probably. Like I didn't think about it at the time, but I was working my way up the ladder to get to the point where I can now comfortably run a site. Prior to that, I was just learning my way. And I think that there's a lot of people now who kickstart a blog or a YouTube channel or something, and they all of a sudden think that they deserve credibility. And I think you have to prove yourself in the market first. Too many of these people put up a lot of things that are just wrong.
Right.
And the more that they post stuff that's wrong, to me, that should ding their credibility. I'm not going to keep going back to them. There's places now as a managing director where we will hear a story, oh, this is breaking right now. And I'll be like, oh, all right, that sounds really interesting. Where are they getting it from? And they'll name an outlet, and your red flags go up. And you're just like, I don't know if we can trust that. Let's dig around some more. Let's ask people who we know. So all of that becomes really important. But everybody, of course, wants to be first. And I'd rather be right than first.
Yeah, you're absolutely correct. Just last week, I was a victim of, I want to say just clickbait, stuff regarding Michael Keaton, Batman, and Ray Fisher's Cyborg. And it's just, it's tough out there, with sources and whatnot. And, that's why I appreciate, you guys were one of the first that I really started following Cinema Blend. And I'm not just saying that because you're here. I really mean it. You guys, along with Screen Rant, back when Vic owned it, and Collider as well with Steve Frosty. Like I appreciate everything you guys do, and it's a tough business for sure. And
we are the three sites, Slash Film, another one being one of them, that have survived this cycle kind of thing. Other sites have come and gone. I feel like we've maintained some longevity because we've earned some trust from the audience, and it's my job to maintain it. So I'm trying my best.
You're doing great, sir. All right, let's get into first the Snyder Cut movement. For me, it's what inspired the name of my podcast, Fandom United, because it was just so beautiful to watch, and then to see everything that they've overcome. I want to ask you, if you were to describe this movement using one word, what would that word be?
Schizophrenic.
Oh, oh.
Because you don't know from day to day which version of the movement you're going to get.
Yeah.
More often than not, you get a very positive, goal-oriented movement, right? And I think for the majority of their time, they stayed unified more than any other fan base ever has over the course of anything I've ever seen.
Right.
Like, for the better part of 3 years, they kept their eye on the prize. They figured out ways to mobilize themselves and to succeed. And to their credit, they pulled it off. Like, they really, when I tell you that they pulled off the impossible, they pulled off the impossible. And it might not even be getting the Snyder Cut released, because maybe someday that would have happened. But they got it done in a period of time that Zack has told me himself he didn't believe it was going to happen this quickly. And it was because of them. But I say schizophrenic, if only because the day after they have a tremendous success, the next day they're infighting, with each other. And people are claiming who gets credit for what, or this person didn't do enough, or we should have done this, or we should have done that. And the splinters that tend to happen in any fan base really show themselves. But those splinters didn't pull the Snyder Cut fan base apart. And that's what I think makes them really special. They rose up and held it together long enough. But I've been asking myself this lately: if this had to go for even another year, I wonder how successful they would have been. Because to me, they still felt unified. They still felt pretty focused. But that momentum is really hard to maintain for a long period of time. And I honestly do think that things happened in perfect timing for all of this. It all fell together at the right time, because it almost would have been unfair to ask them to sustain it for another year or so.
No, I agree with you. Two words that I came up with. I cheated. I came up with two. First one being unprecedented. I mean, because you kind of touched on it yourself. In your time covering this, the industry, have you seen a fan campaign like this, or just a fandom so united in a common goal?
No, nothing even close.
Right.
And that's honestly, that's one of the first things that caught my eye about them. And part of the reason why I wanted to even explore them is because, first off, I knew the hashtag because you'd see it on social media.
Yeah.
It was when I started to see their accomplishments out in the real world. The t-shirt campaigns, for me, it was in San Diego when I saw them take over downtown San Diego, and they wrapped posters around bus stop stations and, rented billboards. And then finally the Times Square billboard was the one that pushed me over the edge. Right. It was like, oh, these guys are really serious, like that's how motivated they are. That's not easy to do. So no, I've never seen anything like this. And in fact, since covering them, I've seen a handful of other movements that have quote popped up, Rise of Skywalker sucks. And everyone's like, release the JJ cut.
Yeah.
And that disappears after a week or two because there's no merit to it. There's no other thing to fight for. There was something legit for people to fight for here, and they were assisted by Zack along the way. So yeah, this is wildly unprecedented. Hey, if you get 2 words, I get 2 words. Can I get a second word?
Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead.
Well, I would also say inspirational, because hopefully people can use this as a playbook for how to make a difference in the industry and in the world.
Yeah.
Like the fact that they paired all of their efforts with a fundraising campaign for the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention is what elevates this movement above anything else I've ever seen. And they have, that's not been a passing thing, like one-off events raised for AFSP. They have kept their foot on the gas in terms of attention to raise awareness and funds for AFSP. And I find them to be inspirational for that reason.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, the charity part of this really made it tough not to root for this movement, because it seemed like with every opportunity they took it and made something greater than themselves and what they wanted out of it. You know, one example I see is or that I think of is the Harley Quinn show. And if you remember, there was the opening with the Release the Snyder Cut shirt. And what did they do? They turned that shirt into a charity fundraiser, and it was just persistence is my second word. You know, no matter how many times they were laughed at or trolled or brushed off, they never gave up and they stayed focused. And so for me, it was just when I saw Wendy's and Subway, you know, contribute to this, I was just like, whoa, this is getting like really, really big here.
All meat, no bologna.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that was brilliant. The Subway campaign was fantastic.
So much
flying over Burbank was fantastic. You know, they took the negativity tilted back at them and used it as fuel. You know, it became a game of, well, we're gonna prove you wrong regardless. But what helped is that Zack kept giving them bullets for that gun.
Oh yeah,
no pun intended. You know, like he would keep putting posts on Vero to verify to the fan base, like, you guys are fighting for something legit. You know, like, here are examples. And then as we got deeper and deeper into it, he was just posting the film canisters, you know, and it was like,
absolutely. Does it exist? Of course it exists. Yeah. I remember that post very well. Speaking of Zack Snyder, so I take it you're a fan of Zack Snyder, right?
I am. Yes, definitely.
Okay. Yeah. So you're a fan. I'm a fan of Zack Snyder. Not everybody feels the same way. You know, from a non-biased point of view standpoint, his work is viewed as polarizing, unfortunately. Yeah. Yet, what is it about him, in your opinion, that makes him so beloved, not just by his fans, but the people who work with him, that they would begin and also support this kind of movement like Release the Snyder Cut?
He has to be an incredible boss. He has to be somebody who commands respect on a film set, but also, from everything I've heard and from the few things I've gotten to see, I went to the set of the Justice League back in 2016. I went to the set of Army of the Dead, and I watched him work, and his enthusiasm for the process is contagious. And I think that's what everybody who works for him, I think he's fiercely loyal to the people who he works with. And I think that loyalty in turn is paid back to him. I think he respects actors, and the actors enjoy working with him. You've seen people come back from, you know, Watchmen, Sucker Punch, you know, they all want to continue working with him.
Yeah.
He just seems like a legitimate good dude. But at the same time, he has a ton of confidence and a swagger that can annoy people who don't like him, you know? Right. It's a confidence that if you don't like his type of storytelling, you would consider it a fault almost. And he almost gives no fucks about that, you know, like, and that annoys his haters even more. So he's a fascinating guy from that perspective, because it's almost like the people who dislike him, he keeps giving them reasons to dislike him even more just by being himself. And they seem annoyed by that. But yet the people who love working with him, they're fiercely loyal to him. And obviously the fans are fiercely loyal to him. And he in turn pays it forward to the fan base. He's constantly rewarding them with, like, look at all of these streams that he's going on. Yeah. He's not doing a traditional press campaign. He's going on shows that have dedicated their programming to his content. And I mean, what other filmmaker do you see going around doing that? Like, he's one of a kind, man. He really is.
Yeah, one of my favorite parts about DC fandom was how he included the very people who were large in the Release the Snyder Cut movement. You know?
Amazing.
Like, bravo, man. Like, I can't say enough words about the guy. I absolutely love him. I love his vision with these characters. I mean, how do you turn Aquaman into such a badass character? Well, you cast Jason Momoa, and me as the Pacific Islander, it meant so much more, you know, to see representation there on the screen as well.
It's fantastic. That's
Yeah.
very cool to hear that. But I'll give you one quick example too of a story. We're on the set of Army of the Dead, and I at that point I'm sort of in the am I going to write this book or am I not going to write this book kind of thing. I kind of collected some material, and I was thinking about I was in the process of sort of shopping it around, but I hadn't gotten any real bites about it.
Right.
And I got the invitation to go to the Army of the Dead set visit, and I thought this is ideal. Like I get to go to a Zack Snyder set, as this is all in the back of my mind. And I wanted to hear him to see if he would talk about the Snyder Cut at that point, right? Because this is the first movie he was working on since we're walking away from Justice League, and nobody really knew where his mindset was. And somebody did ask him over the course of the time, his thoughts about Snyder Cut and Justice League and where he's at. And he got around to talking about the movement. And this tells you everything about who Zack is. He said, I'm never going to downplay or minimize what those guys have accomplished, because I think that would be insulting to all that they have done so far, not just for me and Debbie, but for AFSP, for my family, for my filmography. And you just don't hear a filmmaker be that in tune with his fan base and his audience. Like so many times they'll even play the cool, like, well, I just put out my art and it's up to you how you translate it,
Sure.
And instead he's very much like, no, I care about these people, and clearly they care about me. And this is a conversation that we're having back and forth. And I'm never going to say that they should stop, because I think that it would steal momentum away from what they're accomplishing. And when he said that, I was like, that's phenomenal. And I'm going to write this book just because I want to document their story for you, like for Zack. I want to do it for Zack.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I really think that's what gave this movement, the fans, the push when they needed it, because it got tough at times. There were articles out there that, said it was a pipe dream and this and that. And, whether their sources were legit or not, there were times during this whole movement these past 3 years where it got rough to stay positive and hopeful. So, hey, thank you for sharing that. That's amazing. And
I never, just to comment on those reports for a minute, because nobody really talks about this, and I never really thought about it until right now. If those people who were reporting it, the legit places, not the fanboy outlets, but if a legit trade or some such was reporting, if they were being told by someone who they trust, oh no, we've had conversations and that's never going to happen, then I can see why they would report it. Like to them, that's what they believe in that moment. I was never of the mindset that you should hard and fast say this is never going to happen, because it always felt feasible to me. But in the moment, if they're being told that by a source that they trust, I can understand them reporting it. I just think it would have been safer for them to keep an open mind and to say, right now there are no plans, but who knew streaming services were ever going to become such a big deal?
Oh my God, streaming wars now. Yeah. But I completely agree with you. Some of those pieces that I read, so like the door is shut, it's slammed, it's locked, it's not opening. And well, who's laughing now?
Yeah, that's too far. Don't ever say that. Anything is possible in this business.
Okay. Well, we have to talk about this real quick before we get to your book, if we're going to mention the Snyder Cut movement. November 17th, 2019. The day that really made a difference as far as this campaign gone. I was looking for a film analogy to kind of make this comparison, and the best one I could think of is, I'm sure you've seen the movie Independence Day in 1996, and as they're about to launch the largest aerial battle in mankind against the mothership, and it just reminded me of that day, everyone jumping on Twitter, this online assault, well, not assault, but just hashtag Warner Brothers, hear us now, today. And I loved it. I loved what stood out to you the most that day, besides the number of tweets on November 17th?
Yeah, no, I mean, it has to be the number of tweets, even though you say besides that, just the persistence and the flood, like no campaign in the movement that I have tracked has done that well.
Right.
It's almost like in the back of people's minds. And again, kind of like I said earlier, I don't know how much longer they could have maintained this. It almost felt like, without it being said, this was a last stand, right? Like, we're going to give it our all. And I don't know this in any kind of way, but we do know after the fact that Ben and Gal were called by Zack, and Zack said to them, hey, we're doing this thing. If you could tweet the hashtag, it would really help. Because I think by then Zack had probably had some conversations. I can't confirm that for sure, but I think he'd had some conversations with the powers that be. And I think he knew, because the dude is a born showman. Like, he knows exactly how he's playing the campaign, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think he legitimately knew that if everybody balled out on that day, he would have the evidence in his pocket to go and say to them, like, look, you know, this is the strength of this movement.
Mm-hmm.
So he needed everyone to show up. Now, that doesn't mean it's going to happen. You know, you could want a million things to happen, and the people might not. They might be busy that day.
Sure.
But that fan base was not busy that day. They spent the entire day. I mean, it just became a game. It became a game of, like, how many times can we just overwhelm social media? And, you know, you aim for 214,000, because at that point, 214 was still a significant number.
Right.
You cross 1 million. It's like, it's like ridiculous. It's ridiculous. It blows you set the bar, and then you kick the bar off the planet, essentially. And it gave him the fodder that he needed to go to the studio and say. And I have quotes from him in the book where he went to the executives at HBO or Warner Media and said, you know, look at what they can accomplish. You know, like, this is the strength of this movement. And, you know, you probably need these people in your marketing department, because they can run this for a title than anyone else. And I mean, I thought it was significant, extremely, extremely, extremely significant, that in the news release that came out saying that it was going to HBO Max, that Toby Emmerich pointed at that day, and he said, like, that's the day that we couldn't ignore it anymore.
Right.
It was too loud. It's too loud.
Well, to pull from the Golden State Warriors, you know, strength in numbers, and that day, it was definitely that. All right, let's get to your book. I pre-ordered mine, so I cannot wait to read it. It's on Amazon, guys. Get your book. Trust me, get your book. I previewed the first 6 pages, and it's awesome. I love the detail.
Well, thank you so much.
You already said this is your first book that you've ever written, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. Can you talk about the process and your approach to this project? Because it's not like a lengthy article, like you said. This is a book.
It is, and one of the critiques that I heard from a lot of book publishers when I was shopping around to different places was, this sounds like it would make a really great Rolling Stone cover, you know, portfolio, because I don't think that they understood the full depth behind it. And I'll tell you something really funny. I've heard from a number of publishers who passed on it, who, once the cut got announced, they came back around and they were like, is that book still available? And I was like, no, it's not. Sorry. Because, and truthfully, I had a good handle on half of it, and my wife helped me with the other half, which was, I was always fascinated in the behind the scenes of the film aspect of it, and what had happened to Zack, and Zack getting replaced by a Marvel director, right, who had handled 2 Avengers films, you know, is now coming over to do the first live action Justice League. I was always, from that perspective, always interested in the business side of it. And then when I was explaining it to my wife, she was the one who said out loud to me for the first time, like, who are these people in the movement? Like, why are they doing it? And I was like, oh, really good question. Like, I don't know. And she goes, well, why don't you ask them? Kind of thing. So I started to ask them, and you know, the more I worked my way up the food chain and heard from more and more people who were deeply involved in the movement, I started to hear their personal stories about why they were doing it. And that became the second half of the book. So the book really does cover the construction of the DCEU, Zack's journey. Well, it goes back to Nolan's films. It goes as far back as to the Burton films and the Donner films, and DC as a whole moving its way to the big screen. Mm-hmm. It gets heavy into Man of Steel and BVS. It gets into the production of Justice League and the fact that I got to go to the set.
Right.
And then it comes to the replacement. And then it works all the way through till November 17th and the theatrical cut getting released. The reaction of the fan base gets into a lot of what went wrong. I have an entire chapter that's dedicated to Henry Cavill's mustache and his inability to shave it, and the negotiations with Paramount and Warner Brothers, and some good insight from Christopher McQuarrie. And it breaks down every aspect you can think of, but then it really gets into the meat of who the people in the movement are, why they're there, the importance of artistic integrity to the people in the movement, the importance of the fight for mental health and suicide prevention. And then it gets into the accomplishments covered by the league, and it gets into the subway campaign, and it gets into Times Square, and of course it gets into the November 17th, 2019 push. I just wanted to document all of it. And so it's my first book, but in a way it felt so much like I was writing a breaking news story that legitimately was happening over the course of like 9 months.
Sure.
Because you were racing the clock. There was always something new happening.
Mm-hmm.
And every time something new happened, I was like, well, that's got to go in. And so I was constantly reshaping it throughout the entire process.
All right. Well, if there was what do you hope that readers take away after finishing this book, especially like the mainstream audience?
Yeah. Some people who I've let read the book in advance, friends of mine who are colleagues, who are other journalists, they have told me that it has made them feel much more compassionate for the people in the movement. They don't get the human side of the story. To them, it's a hashtag, and to the worst of them, it's an entitled fan base, who got something that they cried for on social media. And I said, no, it's not. You guys don't understand. Like, that's not it at all.
Mm-hmm.
And I really tried to capture, but I said to them, I came into this with a completely open mind. And if I spoke to all the people in the movement and that's who they turned out to be, then that's what the book would reflect. Right. I would say, geez, these guys just cried for 3 years and the studio gave it to them to shut them up. That's not the case in any way, shape, or form. And so I hope that people in mainstream pick it up and read it because they may be interested in the behind the scenes of what happened on Justice League, and then get to know the people who spent 3 years giving of their time and energy and passion for nothing, for free to get this vision that Zack had promised them restored.
Great. I got one more question for you before something fun I want to do, because I know we're getting close on time. Is more book writing in your future?
Oh, 100%. And it's hilarious to go from I will never write a book to I'm not sure that I could ever be at a point where I'm not working on a book, because it's super addicting. It's just now in my downtime, I am constantly opening up. I have 2 projects going currently at once, and I feel like I'm contributing to both of them at given times. One of them is tentatively titled "Restore the Snyderverse," and it's it will cover everything that's essentially happening from the place that this book ends. This book ends with the May 20th announcement, essentially. Right. Wow. It ends with it's coming. I do a victory lap with a lot of people who are in the movement. I get quotes from Zack about what it means, but this book really does encapsulate everything up until the Snyder Cut getting released. But as you know, as I'm sure you've been tracking on a daily basis, there's still a ton of stuff that's been happening that, everyone's like, oh, you're putting that in the book, you're putting that in the book. And I'm like, no, the book is done. I can't keep adding stuff to it. But that might mean that there's another book coming, and I got to see how it all plays out.
All right. Well, Restore the Snyderverse. Oh, that's so exciting. I can't wait. That's going to be amazing. All right. So running quick on time, I want to rapid fire some questions for you.
Sure.
And we're not breaking news. We're not scoops. None of that stuff here. It's just one fan asking another.
I'm ready.
So I got a couple for you. Okay.
Yep.
All right. One character you're looking forward to the most in Zack Snyder's Justice League?
Superman. It's a Superman trilogy, and yes. I want to see him properly resurrected, and I want to see him return to glory. But Flash is a close second, because Flash got gutted in the theatrical cut.
Yes, very much.
And I think he's capable of so much more.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Buy or sell? Zack Snyder directs again in the DCEU.
Buy, definitely. You don't bring him back and give him $70 million to complete something if you don't have plans to keep him around. I don't know if it'll be on the DC, if it'll be on HBO Max. maybe more in this sort of long form series storytelling. And theatrical is a hot mess right now because of COVID, and nobody knows when projects are going to get back in play. But I could see Zack staying on HBO Max and developing more of the story. Bye.
All right. Man of Steel 2 or a Ben Affleck solo Batman project?
What do I want to see or what might happen?
What do you want to see?
Man of Steel 2.
It's been a long time coming. Long overdue.
That's hard, though. That is hard. That's harder than you think, but Man of Steel 2 is the answer.
Okay.
But the Ben Affleck Batman series would be amazing.
Oh, my God. And
especially if he directs it. Like, I'd love him to direct it.
I want to see him. Yeah, absolutely. Directing is, I mean, you have to. Okay, so I know you like cheeseburgers.
I do.
One spot on the East Coast, if somebody was looking to go and get a cheeseburger, what place would you visit?
I mean, I sent you to like Five Guys. I hate it's like such a generic answer, but Five Guys is probably the most delicious burger. It melts in your mouth.
I've never had Five Guys, so I have to try it.
Oh, for real? Oh, it's really good.
I have it.
It's tremendous. Get their fries. You get an order of fries, and they give you so many that it comes in a brown paper sack that like they're spilling over into the sack.
Oh God, sounds so good, but bad for you, but good. All right, I got two more.
Clearly,
I know you're a sports fan.
Yes.
Okay, you're a Charlotte Hornets fan and a Carolina Panthers fan.
Correct. God, you've done your research.
A little bit. All right. So in no way are you asking for this, but I'm going to ask you anyway for the sake of the question. Trade one, keep one. LaMelo Ball or Christian McCaffrey?
Oh, I keep LaMelo. Running backs are too fragile in the league.
Great answer.
I love Christian, but he barely played this season. And I mean, who knows? You can restructure an offense around other players. LaMelo Ball is the truth. LaMelo Ball is going to be a difference maker, and I hope we pay him everything.
Everything.
And I love Kemba. I mean, I loved Kemba Walker, but over this quick sample size, LaMelo Ball is the truth. I'm missing him playing the Knicks right now to talk to you.
Youngest person to score a triple-double. Absolutely. He is legit. Okay, last one. One poorly reviewed comic book movie that deserves a second watch.
Daredevil. Ben Affleck's Daredevil. It gets enough stuff right, and there's a director's cut that's far better. But it is so 2000s, you know, like the Evanescence soundtrack and all that jazz.
Yeah.
But Affleck really loves Matt Murdock, and there's some good stuff in there. Colin Farrell's Bullseye is awful, but Michael Clark Duncan's Kingpin isn't terrible. And watch the director's cut of that Daredevil movie. It kind of gets ripped and it kind of gets crapped on, but it's better than people think it is.
All right. Well, that's a wrap, Sean. Thank you so much for joining me. Thank you so much again for doing this, making time for the little guy. I really do appreciate it. This was awesome. I got to have you back at some point after the Snyder Cut releases and your book releases so I could talk to you again about it.
Gio, anytime, man. This was great. Tremendous questions. I really enjoyed myself. Thank you.
You're welcome. Real quick, where can people find you online?
At Sean_O'Connell. The book has a Twitter feed at RTSCbook. And I'm on Cinema Blend on a daily basis. Just find me at Cinema Blend.
Great. My name's Gio. You guys can find me on Twitter at Grey Goose Jedi. Thank you so much for tuning in. And Sean, have a great rest of your day, sir.
Anytime, brother. Talk to you soon.